But unfortunately, that's not the job. The job is there to ask tough questions and to dig and to get underneath what the agenda is really all about.
Mm-hmm.
And, that doesn't make any difference whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It's the same. You've got to do the same level of digging to find out what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Too much of the reporting we're getting is, the reporters go to these meetings, they get the news releases prepared for them, and they just rewrite them under their own byline. They haven't done any digging. They don't ask any hard questions. They don't want to rock the boat.
So while you're spending all your time in the wee hours of the night sorting through this boring information, looking for nuggets to inform everyone, these people get to knock off early because they've been given information they have. They dress it up a little bit, meet their timeline, send it in, and they're off to the pool.
Yeah, and if I'm if I'm investigating and writing what they don't want, I haven't run the risk that I get called the names and don't get invited to the, White House Christmas dinners.
Right. Does that mean
Well,
you won't be making Bohemian Grove this year?
That's right. I won't be making Bohemian Grove.
Well, you'll save money on a black robe, so you're okay.
Yeah. I don't get offered all of the corporate board jobs and other things to reward you for, I'm not going to be a Fox News executive. I'm not going to be a New York Times. I'm not going to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Even though
part of the club.
Your credentials dwarf these other people. I'm seeing more and more for lack of a better term, is an old term, jiggle vision, where you're getting these people who are models and dressing them up to be reporters, news reporters. It's absurd. These people seem to have no basic credentials, and they're taking over.
Well, they're like Obama. They can read a teleprompter.
Mm-hmm.
He can wear a suit, look good, and he can speak nicely off of a teleprompter. Now, you get him away from his teleprompter, and you don't know what Obama's going to say. He doesn't do very well in debates, doesn't want to be in one, won't be in a town hall meeting with McCain. And if you get most of the people who are out there reporting and demanded that they do the old investigative reporting and come up with something, most of them couldn't do it.
Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack you in that. Obviously, this information, I hope we haven't glossed over this because, we've heard this before from you. This is a little bit of a primer here for our new listeners. But I don't want to diminish what you have already just told us, that there is a formal infrastructure that blurs the line between the corporate world and the government world, basically setting up as they please a whole new infrastructure of decision makers, not only just for our country, but for the entire North American continent. Now, as we understand, those of us who try to sort of look for this information and try best we can understand that there is a fast track to expand this, as much as they may deny it, into an eventual North American Union, sort of a borderless continent with seamless policies and regulations. Can you explain to us what you know as of today about how this union is intended to become, and how soon this possibly could be, and if it's adopted, how could it impact our daily lives of average Americans?
Well, first of all, it's the same model that was used in Europe. In Europe, over a 50-year period, they moved from a coal and steel agreement that was put into place with the Treaty of Rome in 1957.
And it was called the European Common Market. That's all it was at that time, correct?
The Common Market, European Common Market. And then, they put together a series of European structures, the European Atomic Energy Agency, the European Community, all sounding good, always for security and prosperity, always with the bureaucrats and the politicians denying that it would ever lead to a regional government, saying, this is just economic, we're just trying to work economically to expand our markets with our neighbors, but knowing that it had to lead to economic and political arrangements. So it was a lie from the very beginning. And what happened is, over a 50-year period of time, by 1999, with accomplishing fait accomplis as they went along, without announcing they were going to do it, allowing the people to work and live wherever they wanted to in Europe, saying you're European, you can go wherever you want in Europe and work, knowing that created a mixture of labor before there was ever a determination that there was a European Union, saying, you have a right to have a European Union passport, you're European in addition to an Italian, or German, or a Frenchman, or whatever. And so over time, by the time the Treaty of Maastricht was voted in 1999, and then the currency followed in 2001, you had a complete European Union governmental regional structure set up, the European Union President, a European Union Parliament, European Union courts, and a currency. And those superseded the individual countries. And it's happening here. I mean, look, we have a trans-Texas corridor, which we'll talk about, this superhighway that's going to be put in parallel to Interstate 35.
Oh, well, let me stop you there, because I heard from the mainstream media that doesn't exist.
Right.
In fact, even the except for Ron Paul, the other candidates insisted that it was not there. And
they even go so far as to call people who say, look, I've got photos and I've seen it, they say they're conspiracy theorists.
Please ignore the man behind the curtain or the signs on the side of the highway that say the Texas corridor.
Well, because you can't have, somebody doesn't have a plan that has written on it, North American NAFTA superhighway, it's like Toynbee said, the historian, that they intend to deny with their mouths what they're doing with their hands. So you get Mary Peters, Secretary of Transportation, and get her to testify in Congress, and Ron Paul will tell you this, or, Walter Good from Virginia, who's also very opposed to what North American Union is all about doing. He's got a resolution in Congress to block the North American Union. So, Congressman Good tells me, well, Mary Peters comes in and you ask her, Secretary Peters, is there a plan for North American superhighway? And she says, oh, no, we don't have any such plan. Then she'll spend the next 45 minutes testifying about the Trans-Texas corridor, how Sintra in Spain is going to finance it, how they're going to build it parallel to Interstate 35, how it's going to connect down with Mexico and the Mexican ports, how they're working with Canada and the Canadian Asian Pacific Gateway Transportation Plan, how they intend to develop railroads in the continental system. She just doesn't want to give it the name that it really is. Now, that's just another form of lie. That's down to, Bill Clinton, it depends on what the meaning of the word is.
Right. And they assume the public is going to glaze over and get back to their media and just ignore what's going on.
That's like Bill Clinton saying, oh, that's not sex. I didn't have sexual relations with that. That's not sex. Well, what is it then? If he's going to define sex as only this particular act, well, then, that's such a diversion from common sense, but it permits him to lie within his redefinition of what everything means. He's got to control the language. Well, it's the same here. They're just saying, oh, there's no North American NAFTA superhighway because they don't want to tell the truth about what they're really doing.
For all the deception that these political figures are pulling across the American public, I'm even more disappointed in the American public specifically. I know somehow they're a product of their education and other things that have occurred in the last few generations, but we don't hold any accountability except for a handful of us. We don't even look past what these people say and try to make sense of it. And in fact, just to give you an example, one of the recent Republican debates happened right when these Iranian boats were coming toward one of our ships, and that strange voice came over the audio saying, we are coming to blow you up and explode you. And that happened right before a debate, and every one of the people in the debate was ready to go launch an attack against Iran immediately.
Except
in fact, I can except for Ron Paul. Yeah, I can remember the minister Huckabee saying that he personally looked forward to leading some of these people to hell himself. Well, and Ron Paul was the only person who said, well, maybe we ought to check out before we start launching an attack until they find out that it's some heckler that's in doing this stuff in the Persian Gulf. And the American public doesn't hold any of these guys accountable for any of this. When you hear the exit polling that they do with the interviews later, basically they're looking for one-liners and finding out who looked most presidential or who had a memorable line to say.
Well, that's the problem, is that you're dealing with the surface, and if you just listen to the surface, they all sound good. But the problem is, like, Ron Paul knows how to dig. Ron Paul knows what the truth is, and he's not going to put up with a lie. And I think increasingly the American people, one of the reasons Like Great USA has done so well, one of the reasons I think candidates like Barack Obama are not going to do so well, is there's only so much lying that you can take. after a while, people are saying, why did I lose my manufacturing job? I was making $35 an hour, and now all the jobs I'm applying for pay, $15 an hour, and they don't require skills. Like, these are the people are saying, wait a minute, why is my land being taken? Why, when I go to keeptexasmoving.com and look at the Texas Department of Transportation website, I find the comprehensive development agreement with Spain. I look at the 1,000-page environmental impact statement, and I see the highway is being planned to come through my backyard. Now, I guess this non-existent highway becomes real when people go to town hall meetings that the Department of Transportation of Texas is holding, and they say, yeah, that's the site of the road, and we did sign the agreement. It'll be even more real when they take their land.
Exactly, which is happening en masse for that.
What's happening, they're building SH-130. They're doing various segments of the highway, getting ready to start I-69 and also the Trans-Texas Corridor 35. They've held meetings on both. They've told people they're going to do it, and people have a choice whether to believe them or not believe what their government officials are, telling them in these meetings. And again, the meetings are boring. You got to take 4 or 5 hours out of your evening, and you got to go to a school or some other public place, sit in an auditorium with 400 or 500 people, and listen to a governor and a Department of Transportation official lie to you for 45 minutes before you can compete to ask a question.
But this is a message for all citizens, because Jerry Corsi can't be everywhere. There comes a time when citizens have to say, it's my responsibility to go to meetings like this, even if they're local or state meetings, and sit through all the boring stuff and not let them railroad stuff through and actually start to care a little bit. Isn't that right?
Well, that's right. I expect people will care as the economic pain impacts their lives. When you see the dollar going down to being worthless, when you see gasoline costing $4 a gallon, you begin to say, why is this happening? And as I predicted in the late great USA that the dollar would collapse. I predicted that they would cause a severe economic recession, because as I studied it and looked at the economic data, I've been in finance for 25 years. I've created financial firms and worked with international banks for 25 years. I've read this data and looked at it and advised people on economics for a long time. A recession was inevitable, and the currency was inevitably going to fail, and energy prices were inevitably going to go up. And I've said it's nowhere near the end. I think we're going to see gasoline at $5 a gallon. We're going to see oil at $155 a barrel, and we're going to see the stock market trading under $12,000 again.
Well, I want to go back, Dr. Corsi, back to what we were talking about with this example with the European Union, which almost appears to me to be like the old adage of cooking a frog by just slowly raising the heat,
right?
Where you start with just economic, very innocuous goals, very small in scope, presumably, and then you slowly start adding like stone soup, peas and carrots and things, and before you know it, you've got a European Union soup put together under everybody's nose.
And you lie. You call it a good name. You tell everybody how good this is going to be for them. You say you wouldn't do anything that would harm their interests.
And then you start calling people names that have something to say against it.
Anybody who objects, you call them a name, you ridicule them, so they don't get listened to.
Right. Either they're backward or uninformed, or somehow don't have the best interest of the rest of the public in mind. Regarding the European Union, since this stuff has all come together, now they have European courts and a lot of regulations that extend across all the countries of the European Union. What has been the impact to the average citizen in the European Union regarding their civil liberties and other impacts that they've had in their daily life?
Well, it's very detrimental. I mean, first of all, the freedoms are restricted. Freedoms are now given by the European Union. The national governments have lost control, not only over their own ability to put laws into place or have their own courts, they've even lost their currencies. So they've lost economic control of their economies.
And they can't go back, in other words.
Yeah, they can't withdraw. Yeah,
they can't. At some point or other, I think there's going to come a movement to pull out of the European Union. I think it will happen. I think it's going to take a little while longer. the average person, many people who, when the euro came in, it was one way to devalue a lot of the currencies.
Mm-hmm.
People who thought they had secure retirements went and found out how many euros they had, and they realized that they lost a lot of their nest eggs.